Welcome everybody to the LCK Spring 2020. I am Valdez, with me is LS, and we are doing our first remote broadcast from our houses. You guys can see the Korean casters on the screen, but we're going to be having a good time casting from our houses. How are you doing today, LS?
I am doing fantastic. This is definitely going to be an interesting experience. I'm glad I'm joined by you for this one today. We have 3 best of 3s today, which is going to be a first. I don't think I've ever cast so much League of Legends potentially in one day. We could go the distance and go 9 games.
Yeah, we are going to have what should be a long day, so there's also that. We have done that a couple of times in the past, so it's going to be pretty interesting to see how it all goes. But we also have a new patch. We are going to be playing on 10.5, so it is going to be really interesting to see how it does go. Any expectations? I feel like the players have all been sitting at home practicing a lot, and there's not much else to do currently in the world right now. Everybody's kind of sitting at home, just hanging out. So should be pretty fun.
And I mean, we're taking a look at the standings. 10.5 does have some interesting changes, which we're gonna get to in a second here. But remember, this was round 1. Gen.G, they came out on top, 8-1, plus 12 points. They're on a 5-game winning streak. Dragon X following them in second, with T1 in third. And Afrika and Damwon Gaming really just trying to solidify their standing on the left-hand side. KT trailing Damwon with an even score. KT has been on a massive upswing. From starting 0-5 to then going on a 4-game win streak, everything just really turned right around for them. And again, the bottom of the standings, there's going to be a lot of interesting things. You have Griffin, who's going to feature a new top laner this time around, as well as APK. Remember, their score is looking really bad, but it's the manner in which their games actually played out that I think is most interesting, because if there is one of the bottom-tending teams that could make a legitimate run for playoffs that I think most people wouldn't be suspecting, it would be APK.
Yeah, I think they're definitely a team that has surprised a lot more than we were actually expecting. So we're also going to take a look at the POG standings. As you guys can see, BDD is on top. I feel like moving over to Gen.G with Clid in the jungle, the 2 of them, you'll notice Clid there tied for 4th place with Faker and probably some other players. They've been doing a really good job in that mid-jungle kind of tandem, and they've been looking pretty good. You guys can see also Nuguri, Chovy, and Faker, a bunch of other guys that are up there towards the top. And yeah, a lot of solo laners really popping off nowadays, but BDD, definitely a guy that Atlas, our co-caster, has mentioned multiple times as being a really impressive player nowadays. So really interesting to see how he's going to do as the season does come to a close.
And I mean, taking a look at the 10.5 patch point, Kai'Sa did get some changes. Nico on there as well as Graves. Now, all of these changes aren't as big as another change that isn't currently on the screen, but it's the Blade of the Ruin King change. There's also the nerf to Ornn, but the Blade of the Ruin King change is, I think, the most potentially meta-warping of this current patch. It might cause a resurgence of Aurelia to come out and have a lot more popularity. Obviously, we'll see it on other types of bruisers. And other than that, I mean, Ornn probably still should be a meta mainstay in patch 10.5. Graves, while he has been popping up in solo queue popularity in the West, not really so much inside of Korea. The Nico change doesn't really do enough for her. Kai'Sa is a champion that is on the rise, though, in the AD carry position.
Yeah, we're taking a look at more of the changes here. I like the little captions that we have. Sit up and flex is not easy anymore. For Set, we were talking about Ornn there a little bit. And the Korean for the Graves is also funny, where it's like, even if he gets buffed 6 times in a row, you're still not going to use him. So will be interesting to see if they do pick up some of these new picks. Obviously, some other buffs and nerfs along the side, but generally small stuff that we don't really take too much notice of. Obviously, a pretty big patch in terms of the amount of changes, but as you were mentioning, the effect, the actual change of the game that we will see from those nerfs and buffs will be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how these two teams are going to adapt. Finally, on our screen is the top lane significance. This is the change to the Hydras, as well as the turret plating is another big one. That does mean that the Demolish Rune also gets some added effectiveness. Blade of the Rune King, 8% to 12%. It's really, really big. Depending on what kind of bruisers we can end up seeing, I think that's going to be the most formidable change. Obviously, the change to the support items is also nothing to really scoff at in terms of they removed it so that you can't have the supports that just go into mid or top lane, buy the support item, and then sort of cheat through laning phase like before. The tribute procs now require a nearby ally.
Yeah, and you can see some of the other changes down there, like some changes for the boots. I don't think they're going to make too much of a difference, but it could affect, especially with the mobility boots, junglers and their timings on when they do pick that up. You know, they might have to clear an extra camp, or they might have to stay out on the map a little bit extra. Maybe we'll see some more Swifty boots, as they have gone up, I think it was 5 MS, but either way, pretty interesting to see all of those changes. And for you guys who are joining us a little bit late and you're wondering, why do we sound different? That is because we are casting remote. Of course, the coronavirus has got everybody kind of on lockdown, so for now we are going to be just, chilling at home, just hanging out, me and LS, and of course the collective at home. So I hope you guys can bear with us during this hard time, and we can have a fun time finally getting back and watching some Korean League of Legends.
Yeah, absolutely. As we take a look at some of the points of the match, LCK is back after a 19-day hiatus. It was a really long break, and obviously this is because of the coronavirus. It's affecting everything worldwide in almost basically every country. It's having an influence to some extent. Second match point, 5 loss in a row versus 5 win in a row. Each side with the opposite momentum. Will the break turn the tide? Honestly, Valdez, I can't imagine Griffin taking down Gen.G here today, even with their new top laner, who's actually doing very well on the solo queue ladder. He's currently ranked 8th, and also all the champions that he's having an affinity for are mostly control champions. Mordekaiser, Rumble, Set, Ornn, things of that nature. Does have some Aurelia inside of his gameplay, as well as Lucian, but I would imagine that Lucian is more so just a solo queue champion than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, if he comes out here against Gen.G and pulls out the Lucian top, that would certainly be making a statement, maybe something we can look forward to, but as you mentioned, a little bit less likely compared to some of the other choices. You guys can see the difference when it does come to the stats. Obviously, Gen.G probably alongside T1 and Dragon X, known to be up there towards the top, but Gen.G currently does hold that first place standing, and their stats absolutely back it up. You know, sometimes we say the stats don't matter as much, but when it comes to these two teams going head-to-head, first against 10th, definitely is going to mean something in this matchup.
Really is, and here is the new top lane substitution being shown on your screen. Hoya is going to be up there in the top lane along with Tarzan, Ucal, Viper, and Irove still. And some people, they might be wondering, doesn't Hoya's name seem awfully familiar to the Jax god? No, that's Hushin Huya. That is a different, it's a different person. I know that a lot of people actually messaged me, and they saw that Hoya is listed on OPGG. He's dueling with the Griffin sub-jungler, and they were curious if it was actually the same person, but it is not. This is an entirely different player.
Yeah. So, definitely we get to see something new here after the 19-day hiatus. We get a new player up in the top line. Unfortunately, Sword not exactly performing the best for his team, so for now, they're going to look for other options, and perhaps he can come back later on in the split. But we're also taking a look here at the lineup for Gen.G. Of course, this is the lineup you all have come to know and love. In the past, it was a lot of, I hope that Ruler carries by himself. But now they have a lot of other options. And speaking of which, we do have Ruler up against Viper here for the key players.
We'll see what Viper can manage to do here. Match history favors Ruler. KDA, obviously Ruler there in first place right now, and Viper struggling a little bit down there, 3.8, 7th. Damage per minute. These are the type of stats that they lead you to a lot of questions. What champions were they playing? What was their team composition? And things of that nature. Ruler playing AD carry and being on the first place winning team. I don't think it's a coincidence that the stats in some areas really line up with the team standings. I think that's just typically how it's going to end up being sometimes. As damage percentage, however, Viper obviously dealing a lot for his team. And remember, Tarzan has been struggling. Sword, who's not going to be coming out here today, definitely was showing some glimmers of hope in some of their series, but all around Griffin really has been struggling to find their stride.
Yeah, and hopefully, you know, a lot of teams that are usually down at the bottom of any region, they like to make changes because obviously something is wrong, and if you don't change something, then, you know, whether it be your drafts or your coaching style or even the players that can get subbed out. I feel like subbing out players is the most common one that we do see, and so yeah, I mean, that is why Hoya is going to get a shot, at least. Now, we've seen many different debuts where players come in and they get absolutely destroyed, and then we've seen other debuts where they actually look pretty okay. So, definitely excited to see how Hoya can do there up in the top lane up against Rascal. And speaking of which, guys, looks like we'll finally get into some League of Legends.
All right, well, we're in the ban pick. Looks like Griffin is going to open with an Olaf ban, followed by Elise. Gen.G staying pretty standard. I would still expect to see Ornn get banned. I know that we had the highlight during the match point that basically said the god Ornn has been nerfed, but it's not a sizable enough nerf to remove him from the meta. He's still Ornn, he's still giving all of those free stats. What it changes, though, is that if Ornn does get an advantage, he doesn't have that massive oppressive advantage where he hits 12 and because of accelerated gold, has both ornaments being completed at the same exact time, which is really, really oppressive to try to handle in the mid-game.
Yeah, absolutely. So, definitely still a strong champion, rather. We will have to see if they do want to pick it up here first, as Talia actually is going to be banned away there on the red side. Tarzan obviously loving his AP junglers, and Talia is going to be one of those, as hovering the Kiana there for just a moment, but considering now Kalista, but Set, even after taking a small nerf, is going to be picked up here, and immediately the lock-in on Ornn Kalista.
It's really surprising to me that Griffin would actually forego picking up the Ornn, as they're electing for the Set first, and Set is one of the champions that can build Blade of the Ruin King, which is the item that we were mentioning earlier on. Now, the Kalista's really interesting because we've seen that she's able to be flexed in the sense that she has shown a lot of AD carry appearances, but she is getting extremely popular up in top and mid lane.
See a lot of fun stuff in solo queue with Kalista, that's for sure. And we are going to see Rumble picked up here. Now, obviously you see the Set already, and traditionally you might consider both of these champions to be top lane champions, but as it does stand, definitely a bit of flexing can go on. We could see Rumble in the mid lane, Rumble in the jungle, you know, all sorts of fun stuff there, as Kai'Sa, currently 5-2 in terms of win rate, is going to be picked up into immediately a Taric, as Gen.G look extremely certain as to what kind of composition they want to pilot.
Yeah, they're having obviously a pretty heavy, hard engage with Kai'Sa, trying to follow up obviously with the Set and the Rumble. Gen.G, though, with the Taric, now being able to flex the Kalista down into bottom, depending on what the bot lane matchup is really powerful. So perhaps we just see a jungler locked in for Gen.G on R4, and then they go from there. Trundle getting banned away could signify that maybe a Sejuani or something of that nature might be coming in on R4, but already it's looking really rough for Griffin. out the gate here inside of the draft phase.
Yeah, and that might just tell the story of what to expect later on in the series, but we'll have to wait and see if they can pull some interesting picks out here, at least towards the end of the draft, as Trundle going to be banned away, Zoe going to be taken away from BDD. BDD's Zoe doesn't really need much mention, but especially here in 2020, he's been popping off big time on that champion, so they want to deny that one. Wouldn't even be surprised to see another mid-ban. It's BDD and Clid, so obviously a lot of high potential picks that you can take away here, so a rough decision for Griffin as they only have one ban left.
Yeah. We'll see what they end up doing. It's going to be the Galio being taken away, and I do think that is not a bad ban by any means. It does help offset the turtle approach that Gen.G could be taking to Griffin's hard engage. And again, we're imagining that a jungler comes in here on R4. It's going to actually be the Rek'Sai, which is very perplexing, given that you already know that Set's coming into you, Rumble's coming into you, Kai'Sa's going to be trying to come into you. So you do need a mid-rangey kind of champion that sort of excels at just being durable for the sustained damage champions that you're going to have on your team, most notably the Kalista, providing peel, providing beefiness and tankiness. And while Rek'Sai does do that, there's just other junglers that exist in the meta that do it as well, that also take away from what the opponent could be trying to achieve. However, Griffin, they're going to respond with a Lee Sin and now a Sylas lock-in. Is very surprising. This probably means that this is going to be support set with Rumble and Sylas going up in the mid and top lane. And that is, that's quite a lot of magic damage, and Griffin's extremely short range all-in engage is getting perfectly answered by the Azir on Gen.G. I just feel like this is an absolute draft decimation here in game number 1. And Griffin, I mean, they just kept walking into it from their B1 pick to the follow-up commitment after seeing the Ornn and the Kalista so early on. They just kept going down that road. And now, when we go into this game, they're basically on a timer. They're saying to themselves, can we somehow come up with a super insane, oppressive gold advantage at 20 minutes while also somehow threatening a 25-30 minute Ocean Soul, or Dragon Soul, in order to win this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's a big surprise that BDD would pull out the Azir right at the end either. It's a champion that he's played, he is quite good at it, and I feel like it's something that Griffin should have at least expected. Perhaps not picking so much for the composition, perhaps more so just for what the individual players want to play. That's been something that we've seen a lot in the LCK, in other regions as well, where the players will just favor picks that they feel comfortable on. And speaking of which, Hoya is going to be jumping on Sylas, so definitely a more so kind of a playmaking champion, although it is a bit of a bruiser as well. So will be interesting to see how he does in this game. Obviously, we can have the double Ornn horn coming out here, as he is going to be going up in the top lane.
We'll see what Griffin is going to manage to do here. So many of the lanes are actually just in Gen.G's favor. That's why it's going to be so surprising. So much pressure is going to be on Tarzan this game to make something work, because once this game gets to the 20-plus minute mark, the scaling on the side of Gen.G and just the way that they can itemize the Taric ultimate and what it means for the mid-late transitions, everything just becomes so much easier for Gen.G, and the ask out of them is so much lower than that of Griffin. It's pretty brain dead to be able to pilot that team composition to a victory, assuming that they're even or even just slightly behind.
Yeah, so I hope you guys are settling in with the remote broadcast that we do have going on. Of course, the players are also going to be playing from home, so we don't have the live camera shots of them in the studio or anything like that. So we have a lot of pictures to be shown here today. We have our pictures, we have the players' pictures, as you can see down at the bottom, just kind of rotating there. Looks pretty cool. But we also did get to highlight Ruler's Kalista. I believe it's 14-6 So obviously a pick that this guy does know exactly how to pilot.
We'll see how both of these teams are going to start off. Actually, Irove with a flash face breaker immediately.
He's really not wasting any time, as Viper does do a bit of damage, but at the end of the day, you use Flash and Ignite, and you'll notice that both Ruler and Light, they still have all of their summoners. Not quite sure about that play, LS.
Yeah, I'm not really so certain what it was that Irove was just trying to go for there. Also, interesting to know, Irove, he has Omnistone on set. And yeah, he has Omnistone and he has Celerity on set. Okay, I'm just...
You think maybe he pressed the wrong button?
I'm not trying to criticize runes, you know, 2 minutes into the game, but... We do have something that is definitely going on here. It's very peculiar. Also, we saw that Rumble had the Scorch in the mid lane, but Rumble versus Azir, it's never really a lane that you can find a kill in, and Irove is just continuing.
Oh, no. Yeah, I mean, he is the set. He is going to be pretty tanky and take decent trades, as you can see. It looks really silly to play as well as the rune choice, but he's been able to make some of the trades work. It's just that summoner trade is absolutely not worth it in the end. As Ruler and Life, they have the sustain with the tower. They're going to be able to eventually get back some control there as Clid. Considering a dive up in the top side. We'll see if Rascal can land this stun, or if, okay, he's going to get the knock-up first into the double knock-up, and just like that, not even going to go down here. Rascal takes an extra turret shot, but it just does not matter, as that whole wave is going to be missed as a counter dive in the bottom side. The teleport is going to come in, and it's traded back by Gen.G, so a 1-for-1 down in the bottom side, although they did have to expend their teleport.
Yeah, and so they do use the teleport down in bottom. Azir are going to be able to pick up some of the XP as well as the CS. Top lane is extremely rough right now, though. Rascal able to save his teleport. Seemingly, he got the big wave crash. Take a look at this. All these minions, all this XP. Uses the knock-up. Really easy chain together with Clid. And then down here in the bot lane, Tarzan, he comes down immediately. They go for the dive. It ends up just being a 1-for-1. It's not the end of the world, though. Yes, Azir did miss some of the stuff in mid lane, but he ended up getting some value down in bot lane. And so, all things considered, the game is still in Gen.G's favor. 30 seconds until Infernal Dragon is going to end up coming up.
Yeah, that is going to be the first Drake of the game, so that will, of course, improve our chances at a Cloud Drake Soul, if that does come along here. As Irove is, I feel like, he picked the wrong runes, and he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna roam. We'll see how that works. As he's got Hex Flash, and I mean, ganking an Azir is not an easy feat as a set, so really kind of confused about what some of the plays are that he's trying to make.
Not really entirely certain what he could be trying to go for here. It's going to be really hard. Now, obviously, with the Omnistone, with the boots, he does have access to Predator, and so he can look for things like that. But really, all of these lanes on Gen.G are really, really hard to gank unless the laners make massive mistakes, and that's part of what we were trying to talk about earlier on outside of the draft phase, where the laners have to really manipulate their lane states to be favorable for Tarzan, because if they just continuously go even and coast into the mid game, they're going to be at a massive disadvantage for all of the team fights that end up breaking out. And they're on a clock, and it's so heavy, and you can even see Tarzan, there's not really any windows or openings that he can realistically find. All the laners are just so safe and stable. Clid basically acting like a living ward. There's not a whole lot to do right now. And so if you're Gen.G, you just want to make sure that you locate Lee Sin, keep tabs on his CS count, know what camps he does and doesn't have available, and then just play around that endlessly. Eventually pick up maybe the Infernal Dragon, like what Clid is trying to solo right now. They have really good priority in mid lane and bot lane. They're going to be able to achieve this. Irove coming in for a trade.
Let's tune it again, and the burst, it looks so bad. The W is going to go wide from the Kaisa, which is obviously going to take a lot of that burst away. Tarzan gets here, but he's just a couple seconds late. If he got there a little bit earlier, he's actually going to go in for this one. Big equalizer on 2, but the bottom lane fight is going to go the way of Gen.G, but a huge slapping of the heads together is going to move this back into Griffin's play, although the teleport now from the Ornn was looking good, but it actually gets interrupted by Hoya. Silas stealing the Ornn horn, and now they're able to turn it back around as a massive Emperor's Divide is going to put an end to all the fun, as so much was going on in that big team fight.
Yeah, and at the end of it, I mean, Gen.G, they got the Infernal Dragon to conclude everything here, and while a reset does end up occurring, nothing super meaningful ends up happening for Griffin, and so it's going to ultimately be a pretty big loss for them. Rascal, camera up here in top lane, he's already level 7, looks like he's chipping away at some of the plates, and take a look at this, Tarzan lands the initial Q onto Clid. Equalizer ends up coming out. Azir trying to shuffle his way out of there. Clid barely getting away at the very end. Life also managing to sort of get away. Hoya cancels the teleport that was coming out from Ornn, stealing away his Ornn horn. Yukal trying to get more damage, flashes to try to get something to happen, but then the Shurima shuffle pushing him back.
Yeah, BBD is kind of like the father. He's like, enough is enough. Enough play. Stop making noise, guys. We've had enough. And he put an end to the shenanigans. There were no kills at all in the entire trade. Shout out to Iroh, who, again, early on, we were kind of picking fun at some of the choices he has made, but actually a really nice job salvaging the fight that started off pretty poorly for the Griffin bottom lane. So shout out to him, as things have kind of stabilized here. Obviously the Infernal Drake is going to go the way of Gen.G, as Clid and BDD did pick up that objective. Clid now going for a second one, looking at Shelly here at 846.
Yeah, and if they end up picking it up, they should be able to probably plant it in mid lane, most likely. That would be the place that you want to get as much damage down onto the turret as possible. Just sort of open it up. If you end up casting it on top lane and just raising Silas's tier 1 turret, then it's going to end up just making it so that Ornn can't overextend to actually farm, and you would just be giving the Silas free farm. So we'll have to see where Clid is going to elect to use that Rift Herald, as 2 minutes until the Mountain Drake comes up, and which does mean that we could get the extremely dreaded Clown Soul coming up here inside of the first game back.
Oh, man. I hope we don't hire the clowns for this remote broadcast. I feel like that would make things even more tricky than they already are. As Clid, he's thinking about mid, but BDD is going to push that one in. And notice he's going to use the lack of vision in the mid lane to just sneak around down towards the bottom side. There's really not much vision at all down on the map. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, there's really not much. There's 3 wards up towards the top side. There's 1 control ward down here in that normal brush, but outside of that, a relatively dark map for now. As Hoya, after getting ganked early on, he has been able to stabilize at least. He's only about 10 CS behind. He's playing it very carefully. After that initial start to the game, he did a great job of interrupting the teleport earlier on. So far, I don't know, I'd give him a B+ for the game.
All right. Very fair analysis right there, Valdez. I'll give that one to you. And so far, though, in this game, the other thing that I think is important to note is Silas, he has the Hextech Revolver. We'll see if he actually completes into Proto Belt, and I feel like that would be a pretty big mistake at this point. When the Silas is already so far behind, completing into Proto Belt feels pretty bad, because then typically what the next item will end up being is you'll get this Anya's Hourglass for utility, but then if you're already behind your opponents in terms of base levels and meaningful item completions, these cheap items, which normally provide an edge because they come online sooner, they provide a lot of value, they end up losing their power, and it just feels like dead weight as you transition into the mid-game.
We're going to see Shelly dropped up here on the top side. I was kind of oohing and ahhing myself by the CS of Hoya underneath the turret. It was pretty nice to see from the Silas, but that laning phase is going to be quickly put to an end. Shelly does come down. Clid going up to the top lane, though, and that's communicated immediately. And Griffin say, okay, if you want to take the turret early on, we're just going to go ahead and take the Mountain Drake away, as it will be that dreaded Cloud Soul, unfortunately. That does get put here onto the map. So perhaps we're going to have people running around real quick, but not all that much else.
Well, Clid looking for something maybe to happen here, and Mountain Dragon getting picked up by Griffin. It is a nice little resistance for them, but there's so much magic damage that really comes out of Gen.G from the Azir, from the Tark, from the Ornn as well, that none of their champions really build any MR, so they're not getting a lot of amplification. There, obviously, the armor stats, once we start getting into later stages of the game, is going to be pretty nice. But Cloud Dragon, not the most prestigious soul to really chase after, and so I really feel like that is a pretty good role for Gen.G in the sense that it's not super crucial that they stop any of Griffin's attempted captures of it if there's something else of value to be gained on the map.
Yeah, for sure. And I was just taking a look at some of the items here. You were mentioning the Proto Belt earlier on. That does get completed here for the Silas. I mean, I suppose it's going to give him some nice wave clear, but I'm not sure that the Silas needs it anyway. But will make things a little bit smoother on that front, at least. Gives him a little bit more mobility, but definitely not the best choice here. But I did want to bring your attention to the mid lane of Griffin. He's built an Oblivion Orb and then went straight into a Ruby Crystal. You think maybe we're going to be avoiding some Rellenomicons today?
I think that probably could just be a Haunting Guise getting built second, and then probably going into Leandre's Torment after that. Just sit on the Oblivion Orb with the Stork Pen Boot to get the 33 pen. And other than that, though, we definitely are back to literally can't kill Valdez. I have missed this. I saw some comments about it. Okay.
Tarzan, you okay over there, buddy?
He wanted to actually be like one of in the movie, right, where the monkeys are like swinging on the vines. Yeah. That's actually exactly what Lee Sin just looked like right there. He was swinging through the jungle. It
looks like he was sucked through a black hole or something.
Yeah.
He went from all the way on his side of the jungle to underneath the turret in under 2 seconds, just like going for a crazy ride. So he did get out alive, though. So I suppose he's watched that Interstellar movie more than once. Knows how to make it through that black hole. I mean, you talked about being on a timer here for Griffin. I feel like the early game was a pretty nice lead garnered by Gen.G, and Griffin has stabilized, but that's just not good enough given their team composition.
No, it really isn't. I mean, Griffin stabilizing still does mean that they are behind. They're down right now about 3,000 gold. The Infernal Dragon will eventually outscale the Mountain Drake.
유진 미드 여기 핑 확신 노플
saying no flash.
노힐 럼블 잘했고 상거리까지 뚝게 이럼 리신 노플 럼블 띵아
And that was just a quick little replay there, but everything on the side of Griffin is really just so stunted. They're going to constantly keep playing ping pong. We're no stranger to this inside of the LCK. And Ruler just hopping around down here in bot lane, getting some chip damage. And honestly, Valdez, I wanted to ask you how you've been enjoying the last 19 days.
Yeah, it's been... I can't really say that it's changed my life all too much, to be honest. Like, I'm absolutely, a gamer through and through, and a lot of my time was spent out indoors, rather. In the past, I used to, occasionally meet friends and maybe take the train a little bit more often, but outside of not doing that as often as I used to, kind of just, sticking around at home, playing games, chilling out. The one thing that I'm kind of sad that I do not have in this time is actually a Switch for some of that good Animal Crossing. And
yeah,
I saw a lot of the other games, But yeah, what about you? What have you been up to?
Well, I got back to co-streaming, recently. That was good because LCS and LEC was canceled temporarily, but now they are resumed, so that's been fun. And not too much else actually. I don't really go outside or do anything with the whole Corona situation.
Yeah. And,
but didn't get sucked into the Animal Crossing. That didn't happen.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. You say like sucked in, is it's like a demon sucking out your soul or something.
It really seems like everyone is trying to get each other to play it.
Yeah, it does seem like a pretty addicting game, to be honest.
It really does, yeah.
When I looked at it, so you know, perhaps in the future. But we do have some League of Legends happening. Irov did have to flash away as he was taken here, but now we do have the Silas horn coming on in. Irov looking for that engage, a really nice equalizer on top of the whole team, but it might not matter as Life actually hits only his ultimate onto himself. But you can see fighting front to back now that the ultimates are down. Viper doesn't have any room to chip away, whereas Ruler and BDD is easily able to fight from the back there, chase them down. They've got good mobility, although Viper has been going a little bit on a ring around the rosy here. As,
that actually hit.
Yeah, he flashed there. It was a little bit of a weird, what do you call it, visual there. But he does pick up the kill with that stun, as that will be the win in the team fight, as well as the first Cloud Dragon going down to the side of Gen.G.
Yeah, at this point of the game, 4,000 gold lead here for Gen.G. They get the Cloud Dragon. Irov not going to really be able to find anything. And when you take a look at other stuff going on, we see UCal actually completed the Morello. When he had the Ruby Crystal, he could have picked up the Haunting guys, but perhaps wanting as much power as possible for this upcoming fight, even valuing the Grievous wounds here. Side of this team fight, Rascal getting a really good knockup, but there's just no way for this Griffin team composition to really stand up to Gen.G's at this stage of the game. We talked about this in the draft select, and it really didn't look to me like that stun was going to hit, but
he flashed. It didn't look like he flashed.
I know, it was
weird. He didn't change where his position was at all with the flash. He did flash. So, yeah, they pick up the kill, and you're exactly right. I mean, it's kind of like Griffin is for your life. That's what it feels like in this game. And we'll see if they can pull off some miraculous plays as the game does come along. At least Tarzan was able to pick up Shirley. A small victory for them, but a 5,000 gold lead here before 20 minutes for Gen.G with the scaling comp.
Yeah, at this point, 3.5 minutes until the next Cloud Dragon. There's going to be another turret going down. The gold lead is going to extend even further. It's going to be a 6,000 gold advantage almost here for Gen.G after they clear out their jungle and get back to their side lanes. So we're just waiting for that to unfold. Itemization only going to get worse from here. You have Lee Sin building a Black Cleaver. He's really only going to be amplifying his own damage. I mean, I do believe Silas does deal a bit of physical damage when he is on top of the opponent and auto-attacking them. Obviously, Set and Kai'Sa are going to be dealing some physical damage as well, but it's just not going to be all that reliable. We're going to have the ornaments start coming in soon. Rascal going to be 13 soon. He'll immediately get the Abyssal Mask and the Sunfire Cape upgrade, and looks like we're going to have Ludens probably be the item of choice for BDD. You're going to have Might of the Ruin King on Ruler, and Obsidian Cleaver onto Clid. So everything is just really getting worse from here for Griffin. So we're probably going to see a panic attempt team fight when their next item completions come in, and it's still probably going to end up resulting in Gen.G winning. But that's Griffin's only chance back into the game, is making some sort of a pick-off, winning some sort of a hero team fight, getting Baron, and then trying to get a sizable enough goal.
Oh, Life is just going to disappear as he desperately tries to get the Cosmic Radiance down. And now Gen.G just say, we have Viper in a great spot here, let's go for the 4v5, but he's going to survive for quite a long time as the Rek'Sai ultimate looks like it hit Tarzan instead. They're still going to win the fight, but not the cleanest one we've seen by any means, as another 2-for-1. It looks like actually 2-for-2, as Life did go down earlier, but it could turn into a 3-for-2 as Tarzan looking to get executed here. Can he? Yes, he can, actually, but BDD says, that's not fair, that's not the way it was supposed to be, let me just kill UCal by myself in the top lane.
Yeah, and I mean, UCal even dies down up there in top, and this is going to mean that Gen.G, they're going to immediately turn over to the Baron, and they're going to get this for free, and at this point it really is all that she wrote, I think, for this game. At the end of this Baron, it's going to persist on, it's going to bring the game to it's gonna bring the game to Cloud Soul after this. They're gonna pick up the Cloud Dragon while they have the Baron, and it's really looking like lights out for Griffin here in this game number 1. And the writing was on the wall from the draft select. They never really managed to achieve what they needed to. I mean, here inside of this team fight, they invest actually quite a lot only to get a kill onto the Taric, and then Gen.G able to collapse so quickly. And you can see that if they group up, they don't really have the damage necessary to take down the members of Gen.G and how tanky they are. BDD comes right over the wall, Shurima shuffles UCal, and UCal really just probably is thinking to himself, well, what can we probably do in the next game?
Excuse me. I feel like he's probably been thinking that a lot so far in this season. Unfortunately, UCal definitely one of the more vocal members. As well, looking for a kill now, a pick onto Hoya just like that. Thinks he's safe, but there's a ward over the wall, and I mean they barely had to expend anything to pick him off as well. It was, I think, just a fate's call used perhaps in that fight. And yeah, they're easily going to pick him off. They're going to send Clid over here to the Cloud Drake. And you mentioned all she wrote. I feel like that might just be the case here, although they are going to go for one last attempt as Irobe. He's got a really nice position right now on the flank. Will he choose to take it? He's just kind of chilling out. And he is not going to go for it. Will just recall. Funnily enough, Gen.G, they don't go for the push onto the inhibitor. Perhaps they noticed that the set wasn't in mid lane. I'm not sure why they would feel that way. Perhaps it was just that they did not have the minions. They're going to push in with the wave of bottom.
Yeah, they're rotating down to bot lane. They actually get a lot more objectives this way. If they stay around in mid, they lose out on the opportunity to raise the bot tier 2, or at least delay it considerably. And this way, if they can end up raising the bot tier 3, then they're going to get both inhibitors off of a win anyway. Set's going to come in here. He's looking for a superplex.
Yeah, it's a lot of pick damage already. Poke damage. BDD is going to survive somehow. Gets healed on the backside. And they don't have any more of their ultimates to use after that, as Clid is going ham. He's going so deep into the back line. He's going to get the kill, but immediately goes down himself. UCal getting low here. Rascal trying to frontline and is going to do quite well on that, as now with the extra pick, trying to turn it around onto Ruler, as Viper, he's trying to go and delay this game, but he is not going to be able to, as he gets picked off. The same can be said here for Irobe, as Gen.G will look to push and perhaps end this game.
I think this is almost certainly going to be the end of the game. I mean, it's 6 seconds on Tarzan, but he doesn't have Dragon Kick available on his Lee Sin here, as Hoya trying to do whatever he can to proxy the wave. Taric ultimate comes out.
Cosmic Radiance is going to be good, and that is indeed all she wrote. As will they go for the pick here onto Tarzan? Tarzan looking for the kill onto Light. He is not going to get it. GG is going to be the end of the game here at 25 minutes, 11 seconds. A absolute slaughterfest to start us off for Griffin up against Gen.G.
Yeah, and I think that it's probably what most people expected. Gen.G, they came in with a much better scaling draft in game number 1. Griffin, still basically the same old. They choose a draft that has a heavy reliance on early game ability, don't really do anything with their laners, manipulating lane states to be favorable for the jungler. Nothing happens, both teams sort of coast into the mid game, and then, surprise, surprise, one is considerably better than the other.
Yeah, it feels like a book that we've read many times before. It's like a short story that we've read many times to our children, and we've said we've hit the punchline, we've hit the climax of the story, we've hit everything in it. We've read it so many times that we know exactly the way it's going to play out, and that was just kind of picture perfect from Gen.G. They've read the story too. They know how to play it out, and it was obviously, again, guys, it is first place up against 10th place. Gen.G are looking super clean against pretty much every team in the LCK, whereas Griffin, the exact opposite can be said for them. So it is going to be the win going to Gen.G here in the beginning.
Well, we'll see what Griffin can do in game number 2 when we do get back to that. I feel like Gen.G, they're probably going to be in a really good position. When Griffin doesn't want to take Ornn on B1, that makes me feel like they're probably unprepared for the draft phase if they think that Ornn is not B1 pickable, over Set especially. Now, yes, Set does have his flexibility, and he does have that power, but Ornn is still Ornn, Valdez. I don't think there's ever a reason he should get through the pick ban, and if he does, you should almost certainly be picking him first.
Yeah, I feel like maybe Hoya said, hey, look, I'm going to be able to counter him up on the top side. We'll have our own Ornn, but it foregoes so many of the other things that Ornn brings to a composition, like the items, like everything else. That's the weird flash there to get the kill. And this is the one moment where you're thinking, hey,
yeah,
they got a pick off. Maybe this will amount to something. Perfectly timed TP comes in.
Yeah.
Gen.G turning around.
Beautiful flying teleport right there. It allowed Gen.G to just collapse so cleanly. And I mean, there was a lot of other teleport angles that Rascal could have taken. It would have just ultimately delayed the fight, but it was still basically an inevitable conclusion. Yukal trying to push out a wave because, yeah, he had somewhere to be.
He has a flamethrower.
He did have.
What else are you going to do with the flamethrower?
He had a hot date that he needed to get to somewhere. So he's trying to push out the wave. Azir comes right over the wall, ends him. We'll have to see if any substitutions or things of that nature are actually going to be made in game number 2. Not expecting anything to happen, but Gen.G were just in constant control of the game, and this is one of the faster games we've had in the LCK. 25 minutes and 12 seconds. Very surprising. Love Gen.G's team composition, and they're living up to the hype here in round number 2, or in round 2.
Yeah, they certainly looked pretty good in this game to start us off. Wouldn't be surprised if we do go into a 2-0 sweep for Gen.G, although I do not want to count Griffin out. If we do switch sides, maybe they will have some kind of tricky draft to bring into game number 2, and if you can get ahead early, then anything can happen. So we'll have to wait and see if they can pull this one back as... Yeah, again, for you guys, I mean, this game was pretty straightforward. Gen.G kind of just clapping them in game number 1. But again, guys, we are doing the remote broadcast. That's why we are sitting very still on your screen right now. We are actually photos on your screen. And we're just doing this from home. We're having a good time. We're just happy that the LCK is back.
Yeah, I'm extremely happy the LCK is back as well. And now during the break, I'm gonna hopefully find something that isn't, this kind of mic.
Okay, we'll see if that can happen. But guys, we'll be back after about 5